Hi everyone, and welcome to my talk today on what is HugOps and why is it important. So I'm Reese. I'm a senior platform engineer at Kainos. We are a digital transformation company and Workday partners, and my day-to-day involves leading a team of platform engineers to build cloud platforms that dozens of development teams build their applications on top of. So very much involved with the world of support and incidents and things going down, stuff like that. So before I dive into what does HugOps actually mean, what is it, I want to give some context about why we need it, and especially now more than ever as well. So critical incidents in IT can have devastating effects on the public, can be really frustrating, severe, and cause large amounts of disruption. And recently we've seen a few examples of this, a few major outages, like the ones shown here, like the air traffic control or the global outages more recently through the CrowdStrike changes. Um, these are moments that, as engineers, we know what that sinking feeling feels like when you make a change that was a mistake that you shouldn't have done, that you wish you never did. All of these kind of things gives you that horrible sinking feeling, and we've all been on the end of those moments. We know what it feels like. And this is not about introducing another buzzword, another word that nobody really understands how to embody or to add into their company or processes. It's about something completely different. So I want to talk about that a bit later on, but let's move on for now. So, as the title says, nobody really cares about the technology until it breaks. And I think you'll find this is true if you think, when was the last time you or someone you know spared a thought for the underlying lines of code that actually support and build the infrastructure or the software that you use in your day-to-day activities? Um, even as engineers, tend not to think about other services so deeply about what code is being used, what infrastructure is being used. But when something goes wrong, people love having something or somebody to blame. But tech doesn't break on its own, generally speaking. Nothing really blows up of its own volition in the technology world. But what's left to blame at that point besides a person? And unfortunately, that's what we see happen online quite often is who did this or who made this mistake? How was this allowed to happen? How could you make such a mistake? Um, tech evolves over time, though, and we need it to do that. That's why everything we love in the modern world is the way it is. It's why we have a modern world. That does mean that changes to our code, our technology are necessary, though. It means to improve over time, we have to change over time. And changing things introduces a small risk of something going wrong. It has to. Um, nobody wants that to happen. But as Murphy's Law quite rightly puts it, everything that can go wrong will go wrong, and usually at the worst possible time. Of course, I'm not suggesting that incidents in technology are not a huge disruption. Our lives very recently have been in a state of symbiosis with technology. You know, we need each other. And when a problem happens, chaos follows. You know, people are definitely entitled to feel angry and frustrated when something goes wrong. And the criticism can often be constructive as well. You know, how is this allowed to happen? Have you looked into this? And the online community can be good for things like that. But certainly the majority of what's online is on the other side of that. It's the negative side. Um, and before we understand what's caused an incident or what's caused an outage, I think we should take a moment before sharing thoughts online and try and remember hookups. So that brings us around to this magical word, hookups. Um, it's about changing the way that we connect with the people that are building these systems and supporting these systems, about showing empathy, support, and appreciation for the people who build, maintain, and fix the complex software that we all use in our day-to-day lives. Um, you know, it's about the idea that 99.9% of the time, whatever you're using, whatever you're doing works just as you expect it to. And it might be a bit slow sometimes, and you might find that frustrating, but 99% of the time it works perfectly. And when it does go wrong, whatever, 0.1% of the time, that's when it causes a disruption. And that's when everybody starts to realize that there's people involved, but not in a good way. And you just have to remember that the reason you are disrupted today, ever so briefly, is the reason that you can do exactly as you want, as you please for however many of the other times. And, in ways that even 50 years ago, you wouldn't have been able to imagine doing those things. So, yeah, as in a world where we're all becoming more and more disconnected and you see less of an obvious connection between the tech that you use and the people that build it, it's about trying to bridge that gap by using HugOps and showing support to the people that build these things, people that support these things, get a phone call in the middle of the night that something's broken, have to miss family trips to fix something. It's about trying to bridge that gap back over. So why do we bother with hookups? What's the reason for it? So there's two sides to this coin. I'll start with the public side actually, and that's just to promote empathy, appreciate and understand that real humans are behind the tech that is used and that goes wrong. It's not a bad thing for more and more of the public to be patient and be supportive of people during their problem. It's very easy now to get frustrated across the board at anything when it goes wrong. So promoting empathy in the public isn't a bad thing in any way. But for the engineers, it boosts morale. It can definitely boost morale during an incident, after an incident. You know, let's say you broke something critical and then you end up going online afterwards and you see all of these comments. That is it's a terrible place to be in. Nobody wants to be in that position. Um, so going online instead and seeing things that, improve your morale or reduce those feelings of stress during the moment makes a world of difference. So if you get one thank you message, one hookups message after an incident, it can make a huge difference compared to the huge influx of angry comments, frustrated comments. So it's two sides to this, engineers and for the general public, people, but it's all about building a supportive culture, supportive atmosphere, looking after one another, appreciating who builds software, who looks after software, and generally trying to bridge that gap of disconnect and frustration between people. So there's some lovely graphics on here from a great Atlassian article on hookups and what it is and about this movement. But to conclude, when chaos is happening, or even when chaos is not happening, the things are nice and quiet, spare a thought for the people that are building these systems, and especially when there is chaos about who's trying to fix it behind the scenes. Somebody, whilst you've seen that you can't do something in the middle of the night, has been woken up, has been called, a team of people, and they're working desperately to fix it. So just spare a thought for those at the very least. Share something online would be great, would encourage that behavior as well. A reminder about the point that the reason you're disrupted briefly, very briefly for today, is also the same reason that you can do exactly as you please for the rest of the year in ways that you couldn't have imagined in the past. Technology is a great thing. It's improved our lives in many ways, and sometimes it will go wrong. As I was saying before, necessarily for it to change and improve, we have to change it, and change introduces a small chance for a problem. And finally, yeah, building technology is hard. Nobody wants to break anything in production. Nobody is trying to most of the time. And generally, it's difficult to build things that are 100% up. 99.99% of the time, if you're up, you still have some downtime, and that downtime can still affect somebody. It's almost impossible to guarantee full, complete service all of the time, especially when you're making changes or when things are happening. So, of course, it's hard. That's no excuse for incidents, and sometimes incidents happen through negligence or poor processes, but it's just to remember, try your best to be kind and empathetic to people during downtime. And that's it from me. So thanks for listening. Hopefully you've learned a new phrase or a new approach to downtime today. Thanks again for the chance to talk here, and you can get in touch via LinkedIn if you want to talk more about this or see more about how this affects people in their day-to-day lives. And yeah, thanks very much.